Federico, we're back with another episode of Mac Stories Unwind, this week brought to you by Longplay and Collide. Federico, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you, John?
I'm doing really well. We have a very special episode today because we're going to talk about our music picks for 2023. It's been a long year and a good year for music. I think it started a little slowly, at least for me personally, but there have been a lot of good releases, especially in the second half of the year. We've talked about some of these on the show before, but we're going to pick our favorites of 2023. But before we get to that, I want to tell you a funny story about app subscriptions.
I also have a brief follow-up item before we get to music, but please go ahead.
Good. All right. So, one of the things about apps and pricing, people are always upset about app pricing. And one of the things that people used to say is, well, I can't believe somebody won't pay $3 for this app. It's less than a cup of coffee, right?
Yeah.
The
famous cup of coffee.
The famous cup of coffee, which is always more expensive than the app. And I don't think that's a particularly good analogy personally, but I heard
what if you don't like coffee?
Right, exactly. Well, I heard an even better one just recently because I was mentioning something about an app that I like on Mastodon, and someone said, I agree, this is a great app, but at twice the price of a Microsoft 365 subscription, it's too expensive.
That's very specific.
It's very specific. I didn't really even know what to think about it. I was like, well, it's not wrong, but it's like, and it was, the app in question here was Pock Pock, which is a kid's toy app, which is very different in kind and nature to Microsoft 365, but I just thought it was humorous. So I thought I would share that with listeners. I continue to tell people, if the app seems too expensive for you, look for an alternative because there's always an alternative. It's, value is in the eye of the beholder, and don't lose sleep over it. Just find something different if it's too much for you.
But that is such a specific comparison.
It is it's a very strange comparison. It's far afield from anything I've ever heard. But tell me, what's your follow-up?
My brief follow-up item is about keyboards, and I cannot accept the fact that the bridge keyboard is not working for me.
Yeah, what are you going to do about that?
I reset it, and I'm going to give it another try. I don't know. I've been using it this afternoon. So this afternoon, I wrapped up my work on Mac Story Selects, which are coming next week. So I finished all my sections. I wrote and edited with the bridge keyboard, and no issues yet.
I didn't realize that it had a hardware reset button or something. Is it like a button thing, or is it a key combination?
I just unpaired it and repaired it with
I see. I got it.
I didn't do much else.
Okay.
No, I just cannot accept that someone made sort of the keyboard that I want, which is a laptop keyboard with a globe key, with a function row, and more viewing angles. Somebody made it, but it wasn't working for me, and I just cannot accept it. I refuse to accept the issue, so I'm going to give it a second chance.
All right. Well, it's unbelievable. They abandoned your keyboard before you even discovered it. That's kind of a bummer, but all right. Well, that's good. I hope it works out for you, and it's not like you have to unpair and repair it every day.
Every few days. Unpair and repair every few days.
Right.
We'll see. All right, let's talk about music. I think the way we're going to do this is we're going to have a top 5. We're going to have some honorable mentions, and then we're going to pick an album of the year and runners-up for the year. Is that how we usually do this?
Yeah, I think so. We don't have to we're not an official list making. We're not a listicle service, so we can do it however we want. We can play it by ear. I think we have some overlap here, so we should definitely talk about those together. But yeah, I think we should come up with our picks.
All right, let's go with our top 5s so far, and we're gonna, for this year, and we're gonna round robin this top 5.
This special music episode of Mac Stories Unwind is brought to you by Longplay. Longplay is an iPhone and iPad app that's perfect for listening to the albums you care about the most. The app shows you a beautiful album wall that's like standing in front of your CD collection, but it's even better than that because it helps you discover forgotten favorites and a whole lot more. Longplay focuses on albums by filtering out the ones where you've only got a couple of tracks in your library. It helps you discover neglected favorites by surfacing the albums that you've rated highly but haven't listened to in a while. It has other unique filters like memory, addiction, and brightness, which come along with a built-in dictionary to explain exactly what those filters do. And of course, everything is presented in an interface that's as beautiful and unique as it is easy to use. The app also includes support for widgets, standby, CarPlay, shortcuts, Siri, and VoiceOver. I've been using Longplay a lot this year, and if you're the kind of person who already hears the beginning of the next song in their head as the current one finishes, then Longplay is for you. Bring your album collection back to life and make your listening experience an enjoyable and relaxing one. To learn more about Longplay, go to longplay.rocks. I'll put a link in the show notes too, both to the website and to the app itself, which you can download. Our thanks to Longplay for their support of the show.
First album in my top 5 is The Record by Boy Genius. You turned me on to Boy Genius, John. You are responsible for my discovery of Boy Genius and Phoebe Bridgers, Susie Dacus, and Julian Baker. I'm obsessed with Boy Genius, and The Record is the album I've listened to the most in 2023, and I love it. Like, I didn't. The thing about Boy Genius is we spoke about this on the show. I was convinced I wouldn't like this type of music, and it turns out that I absolutely do. And in discovering Boy Genius and The Record, it also gave me a newfound appreciation for the 3 individual acts that comprise Boy Genius. So I've been sort of rediscovering the back catalog of Phoebe Bridgers, Susie Dacus, Julian Baker, and I've been having an excellent time listening to their previous work. But The Record, it strikes all the right chords, no pun intended, for me, in terms of lyrics, music, sort of atmosphere. And it's the type of album that I enjoy playing from the first track up until the last one while I'm reading through and following along to the lyrics. It's a very good indie rock, indie folk record. And, Not Strong Enough is probably my song of the year, but there are so many other, hits in this album for me. True Blue, I absolutely love. Emily, I'm Sorry is too good. Letters to an Old Poet is also very, very good.
Yes.
Like, this album, I appreciate. Every single song is like its own little reality, but they fit all together in this record so well. And yeah, this is the album I've listened to the most this year.
Yeah, this is on my list as well, and I'm really pleased that you like it, because I always thought, like, especially when I first probably suggested Phoebe Bridgers to you before I suggested Boy Genius, because at the time Boy Genius only had an EP out, I thought, well, this is going to strike kind of the emo chord with Federico.
Yes.
And so I thought that would be the hook that maybe would grab you. And it took a little while, but I'm glad that you've enjoyed it. I was fortunate enough to see Boy Genius in Wilmington, North Carolina this year. I was right on the heels of WWDC. I came home, slept at home for a night, and then drove like 4 hours to the coast and saw Boy Genius. And the show was amazing. It was basically the entire album, The Record. And I loved every minute of it. I mean, it was so good. And the songs on this album, it's a very moody album in a lot of ways. I'm kind of right there with you with some of my favorites. I really like Emily, I'm Sorry. I really enjoy what else is it? Not Strong Enough. And, when this album was I think that the first single came out was $20, I want to say, and that came out maybe at the end of 22. And it was good. But it didn't really, I think, capture how good this album is as an entire album with these 3 really, really talented musicians on it. And I think that one of the things that's interesting to me more than anything else about Boy Genius is that each of these artists are successful and excellent in their own rights. But as a group, they've kind of transcended each of their own abilities and I think fame in a lot of ways. And it'll be interesting to see where Boy Genius goes from here, whether they will, I think they're still on tour at this point, and still kind of following up on the album, but it'll be interesting to see where they go from here.
Yeah.
I do have a question for you. Have you listened to the single that came out not long ago, The Parting Glass?
Not yet.
You should. This is kind of like a tribute to Sinead O'Connor, the Irish singer from the 80s who passed away recently.
Mm-hmm.
It's apparently O'Connor performed The Parting Glass during her career. It's a traditional Irish folk song, and they teamed up with a couple of well-known Irish folk musicians to record this song. It's a beautiful song. It's a little different than some of the other Boy Genius stuff, but I think it's worth checking out because I think you'll like it.
Yeah. And I also want to mention that I love Cool About It.
Very good. Yeah.
Very good song. And I've been watching a lot of live Boy Genius performances, especially like the ones on Saturday Night Live. And like those are also really good.
I enjoy the interviews with them too. They've done a bunch of interviews and they're such good friends that I think that they're always fun interviews to watch.
Yeah. What's next in your top 5, John?
All right. I am going to mention an EP, which is Be Still My Heart by Baby Girl. Now, this is probably maybe a group that a lot of people are not familiar with, but this is a fantastic album. It's got it's got something in common with Boy Genius in that it has a moodiness to it, but it's more at the indie pop end of the spectrum of genres. And it's got one of my favorite lyrics of 2023, which the one of the songs starts out with, I felt like a pool drained on the last day of summer, which to me is just such a good evocative lyric of feeling fatigued and worn out. And it's just a great, great song. So Baby Girl's Be Still My Heart is like 5 really tightly produced songs that I think are worth checking out if you haven't run across these before.
All right. Up next in my list is Fall Out Boy with So Much for Stardust. I love this comeback by Fall Out Boy. I didn't exactly love their previous record, but I feel like with Stardust, they have really come back with a sort of unique style that is so uniquely Fall Out Boy. And I don't know how else to describe it, but like the combination of pop punk and, this epic sort of orchestrated backdrops and the falsetto singing and the backing vocals by Pete Wentz. Everything comes together in this very energetic pop punk enjoyable album. This is probably my second most listened album of the year. I feel like every single song on this record is a successful single in its own right. Love from the Other Side, Hold Me Like a Grudge is one of my top songs of the year. Fake Out, I really, really love. I mean, the epicness of I Am My Own Muse, like that is such an incredible like song for workouts, I think. Like it gives me so much energy. So Much for Stardust, the title track, is also the closing track of the record. It's this very unique combination of pop, punk rock, and this orchestra often in the background that really puts everything together in this very full, rich sound. And the deluxe version of the record also comes with a bonus track, which is We Didn't Start the Fire, which is a modernized version. Help me, John. The original is from...
oh, boy.
We Didn't Start the Fire is from... I want to say Billy Joel, but it's not. We Didn't Start the Fire. We Didn't Start the Fire. It's Billy Joel.
Yes,
it's Billy Joel.
Yes, it is Billy Joel.
And it's a modernized version with modernized lyrics by Fall Out Boy. It's a bonus track on the deluxe version of the album. If you didn't love the previous record, Mania from 2018, and if you have been wishing for a sort of comeback to, I want to say, Folie à Deux, which is the Fall Out Boy album from 2008, this is that type of album. Like, it's an album for people who have sort of fallen off the Fall Out Boy train over the past few years. And I love it. I love it so much. And if you want to start, like, some of my favorites, again, Hold Me Like a Grudge, Love from the Other Side, I Am My Own Muse, and The Kintsugi Kid is also a very, very good song.
All right. The next one that I'm going to bring up is one that's also on your list. So I want your help with this one, which is One More Time by Blink-182?
Of course, yes.
This album came out quite recently, and so I still feel like I'm working my way through it. Like I feel like I need to really listen to it a bunch more times to really absorb it, but it caught me, very quickly, and it really grabbed me. A couple of my favorite tracks are Fell in Love and, of course, One More Time, the title track, which to me is just such a beautiful song that is just one that really, I think, pays off to pay attention to the lyrics and really understand what it's all about. But this is their first album in 12 years. So this was
with the original formation, including Tom DeLonge.
Yes.
Blink-182 put together an album, a couple of albums, I want to say, maybe Neighborhoods and 9, if I recall correctly, with Matt Skiba before. But of course, this is the original formation of Blink-182. It's Mark Hoppus, Travis Barker, and Tom DeLonge, and they're back together for 12 years, and they've each sort of have gone through their own personal drama and issues over the years. Travis Barker almost died in a plane accident. Mark Hoppus had cancer, fought cancer, and is now clean. And Tom DeLonge has had quite the life. After, alongside Blink-182, he created the emo rock band Angels on Airwaves, which I also love. And then he became this key figure in the sort of search for UFOs in the United States with this To the Stars Academy. Tom DeLonge has played a key role in declassifying a lot of government documents about UFOs in the United States.
Yeah, something you probably would never have imagined when you first listened to Blink-182 way back in the day. But he is very much a mainstay of that entire culture and community.
Absolutely. And they actually do great serious work in terms of like declassifying these government documents and these reports about unidentified flying objects. It's great. But this album. So One More Time. This is classic Blink with a modern twist. You can tell the influences of the work that Travis Barker has been doing. Travis Barker producing a lot of this modern sort of a trap, emo, punk rock folks that are now so popular with kids. And you can tell some of those like electro punk influences in this album, but overall this is a classic Blink record, and it says so from the outset. Like it starts with Anthem Part 3. Of course, this is a follow-up to the previous Anthem Part 1 and 2 from very old Blink albums. And as you mentioned, One More Time is also very good. One of my favorite songs on the album is, I want to say, Turpentine. Great guitar riff and great play on how to pronounce the word turpentine or turpentine in the record. And there are a couple of bonus tracks, Other Side and Childhood, that didn't really hit it for me. But everything else, like when we were young, is also very good. Terrified, Fell in Love, as you said, and Anthem Part 3. I think. This is also in my top 5, so this is a joint pick. What a comeback for Blink-182. And it's so nice. It's so beautiful to see them back together, especially if you're a kid like me who grew up with Blink-182 in the mid-2000s. This is also in my top 5.
This episode of Mac Stories Unwind is brought to you by Collide. If you work in security or IT and your company has Okta, this message is for you. Have you ever noticed that for the past few years, the majority of data breaches and hacks all have something in common? It's the employees, because hackers absolutely love exploiting vulnerable employee devices and credentials. But it doesn't have to be that way. Imagine a world where only secure devices can access your cloud apps. In this world, phished credentials are useless. And you can manage every OS, even Linux, from a single dashboard. Best of all, you can get employees to fix their own device security issues without involving IT. The good news is you don't have to imagine this world. You can start living it today with Collide. Collide is the device trust solution for companies with Okta, and it ensures that a device that isn't secured and trusted can't log into your cloud apps. Just visit collide.com/MacStoriesUnwind today to watch a demo and see how it works. That's KOLIDE.com/MacStoriesUnwind. Our thanks to Collide for their support of the show. All right, Federico, why don't you pick one off your list?
All right. So I did Boy Genius, Fall Out Boy, and Blink. I have two left. I'm going to go with The Main, self-titled album by the band The Main. So The Main, I really enjoyed their 2020 record that I picked before on the show. That came out during the pandemic. And that's sort of how I discovered The Main. They've been around for a long time. They put out a lot of records, but I really discovered The Main in 2019, with You Are Okay. And they did an orchestral version called You Are Composed in 2020. Then they did XOXO from Love and Anxiety in Real Time in 2021 that I enjoyed, but not as much as The Main, their self-titled record. It's this The Main is a very emo band in the sense that it doesn't go as hard as, say, Blink-182 or, other emo acts, such as some that I have in my list. But their lyrics and how they speak to their fans and sort of the topics that they talk about. This is a very enjoyable, I would say, emo pop rock album. Dose Number 2, very good song. How to Exit a Room is one of my top 5 songs of the year. I've listened to that song on repeat a lot of times. Sylvia loves the Funny How. Sylvia really enjoys whenever I put on Funny How, which is this very kind of more on the slow side, sort of like a ballad. But yeah, this is also a very short record. 10 songs, 36 minutes, easy to get through, a good gateway into the world of The Main and the whole 8123 community. The Main have a very particular relationship with their fan base, and sort of they make a point out of being independent, self-produced, reaching out to their fans, meeting their fans before and after their concerts. They have a really tight community, which is also something that I appreciate. And you can tell sort of the best compliment that I think I can pay to this album is that you can tell they're honest. You can tell they're genuine about the things they talk about and they sing about. So yeah, The Main by The Main is also in my top 5.
Yeah, that's a great album. I think you're right. It is one of the more accessible albums in their catalog. All right, let's talk about Olivia Rodrigo and Guts, because
this is a horrible mention for me, so go ahead.
Okay, this is one of my favorite albums. I think it's incredibly impressive how Olivia Rodrigo has come from, this is a sophomore album, and a lot of artists have a hard time following up a big hit first album with a great second album. And to me, this is even better than Olivia Rodrigo's debut album. I really enjoy this album top to bottom. I mean, a couple of my favorite songs are Love is Embarrassing and Get Him Back, which are like back-to-back songs on this record. And I just love her lyrics and kind of the personality that comes through in a lot of these songs. Super well done. And I think that, she's going to have a very long and great career. I mean, this is my favorite pop album of the year for sure.
And the last item in my top 5, this came out at the beginning of the year. We Are Scientists with their album Lobes. I
have listened to this a little bit, I think.
This is the reason I'm picking this is that I've been a We Are Scientists fan for a really long time. I was in high school and I was listening to With Love and Scholar from 2005. I have always loved We Are Scientists. This is a classic indie rock album. It's the kind of album that nobody else makes anymore. From their era, like the mid 2000s, when indie rock, that style of like sort of almost Brit rock inspired indie rock was, at the time with Arctic Monkeys were coming out around that era. And We Are Scientists, this is maybe a quality for some people, maybe a downside. They have never really moved on from their sound. They've been making this style of music for well over a decade at this point. And they're consistent. Each song on this album is enjoyable. It's fun. It's danceable. It's memorable. It's the kind of album where every song sort of, it hooks you, and it remains sort of stuck in your brain. that's the way. That's the way at least this album has done it for me. I've been listening to this album on repeat, and it's probably my third most listened album of the year.
Oh, wow.
And every once in a while, I revisit "Lucky Just to Be Here" is a very good song. I also really like "Human Resources" and "Dispense with Sentiment." Like each of these songs has a hook, and it's so catchy and fun. And it's also like it almost sounds. I guess the reason I appreciate "We Are Scientists" is because they remind me of when I was in high school, and they have their sound, and you can immediately tell, oh yeah, I'm listening to "We Are Scientists" right now. So if you're into this style of music, indie rock from a few years ago, if you enjoyed, that moment in time, 2005, 2006, when Block Party and Arctic Monkeys and Razorlight were all coming out, you're going to love "We Are Scientists." And so, yeah, "We Are Scientists" with "Lobes" in my top 5.
All right. I love that recommendation. My last one is First Two Pages of Frankenstein by The National. And I talked about this a while back on the show, and so I won't go through all the details again, but this album has been the number one album in my rotation. It actually, I've listened to it probably twice as much as I have the Boy Genius album. The title track, "Once Upon a Poolside," is the number one song that I've listened to all year, according to Apple Music Replay. I love New Order t-shirt. It's got some great lyrics that are just really evocative of New Order and things that, I loved back in the 80s. And Tropic Morning News, another really, really good single. This album, they get knocked, I guess, as being like sad dad music, and I suppose that they kind of are. But you know what? I'm going to own it. I really like this one. It's got something in common in terms of the tone and the pace of the record by Boy Genius. There have been collaborations between people like Matt Berninger, the lead singer for The National, and Phoebe Bridgers. I think that there's a lot of crossover in terms of style and ideas there. And as a result, I'm not surprised that this and the record were my two most listened to albums of 2023.
All right. It is time to pick our albums of the year and runners up.
All right.
I'm going to go ahead. My album of the year is The Record by Boy Genius. For all the reasons I mentioned before. I discovered this band this year, and I absolutely love everything about this album and the lyrics. And I love to see those three together. They're fun. You can tell they love each other. And this is a very good album. And my runners-up are Fall Out Boy, So Much for Stardust, and Lobes by We Are Scientists.
All right. Well, I am going to pick First Two Pages of Frankenstein by The National as my number one album because, look, I can't argue with the play count on this one. It's far and away the album that I listen to the most. I love the Boy Genius album. It's a very close number 2, but when it comes right down to it, it was The National's album that I played the most, and so I'm going to give it my top pick and make The Record by Boy Genius my honorable mention.
Very nice. I have some quick honorable mentions that I want to mention. Guts by Olivia Rodrigo is in my honorable mentions list. This Is Why by Paramore is also in my list. Very good album that sort of combines the old Paramore with the work that Hayley Williams has been doing solo. I enjoyed this album a lot more than After Laughter from a few years ago. And this is a new discovery, John, made possible by my ongoing trial of Spotify. I discovered this album last week, and I've been listening to this nonstop. Certified Depressant by Taylor Acorn. I wasn't familiar with her work before.
I'm not either.
This is a really good emo pop punk album. It really goes places. In terms of lyrics, it's very direct and very personal, but it's also very enjoyable, and it's totally my kind of emo thing. So, Certified Depressant by Taylor Acorn that I discovered thanks to Spotify. We'll see how this experiment goes. But yeah, these are my 3 honorable mentions.
All right. I've got 5 quick honorable mentions. I have My Soft Machine by Arlo Parks. Great album. If you've listened to Arlo Parks before, this is a fantastic album. I have a guilty pleasure, Federico, which is Good Riddance by Gracie Adams. This is J.J. Abrams' daughter, who sings kind of the sad teenage girl pop songs. And, you know, if you like that kind of music, this is a great album for that. And then I've got a throwback, Memento Mori by Depeche Mode. Now,
okay.
I didn't think Depeche Mode had another album in them, but they did. And I don't like every song on this album, but there are some really great ones. So I would highly recommend giving it a spin because it is kind of a return to their original form. I guess what I would consider their kind of late 80s form. Then there's Live, Nebworth 22, which is Liam Gallagher's live album.
Nice.
Very good live album. And for an upcoming album, which is a little bit of a cheat because it's not technically out, but there are some singles out there, Saviors by Green Day. Look for that one in January. Late January is when the full album's coming out, but I've been very impressed with the singles that are out so far, and I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of the album. All right, Federico, that's a pretty good list, I think. I think we've given some people some stuff to listen to over the holidays.
I think so.
All right. Well, I want to thank our 2 sponsors for this episode. That was Longplay and Collide. You can find the 2 of us over at macstories.net. We're both on Mastodon. Just go to vitici.macstories.net or johnvorhees.macstories.net or both to follow us on Mastodon. And we're on Instagram where Federico is at Vitici. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHWES. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.